Good deal.
So, all right, welcome to the second episode of Mr. K is Wrong, which is a weird title for a podcast, but it's about a former person that was in my life, or not former person. What the hell am I? A person that I used to know, I guess you could say. And anyway, he's gone down a far right rabbit hole, and this time I'm going to cover an actual Nazi like meme that he posted. And I figured, why not talk to two former extremists about that, right? So if you want to introduce yourselves, you can go right ahead.
Well, I guess I'll start.
Scott, you first.
My name is Scott Ernest. I am a former white nationalist. I was a Stormfront moderator. I also recruited for the offline hate group Pioneer Little Europe Kalispell in Northwest Montana. I left the movement in 2016 after 12 years. I have since founded a nonprofit where I do extremism prevention education, risk assessment, as well as a little light exit counseling and de-radicalization. I got my bachelor's degree right after I got out in public health, and I am currently a master's of social work student, and my eventual goal is to get my LCSW, licensed clinical social work license, so that I can diagnose mental health issues and actually do therapy.
And now, Tyler, I suppose you could introduce yourself.
Oh yeah. Well, with every introduction, I think it's a good forewarning to let you know that I am a little stoned. um, so we'll start from there. The other thing is, I was a part of Atomwaffen back in 2019, and I was arrested for the Operation First Pillar that happened that ended up getting Atomwaffen shut down. So I was arrested in 2020. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, guys.
That's okay. That's okay.
Trying to keep it together.
I mean, if you want, we could just say you're a former extremist or
Yeah,
something along those
former
lines.
Atomwaffen is just what I usually go by. Pretty much it.
Yeah. So, the meme in question. I mean, a little bit of background that this guy that I know, when I knew him back in my high school days, he was like a sort of happy-go-lucky kind of goofy guy. He was a Republican, but he wasn't like I never thought of him as like a Nazi or anything like that, right? But this particular meme, it's about the Rothschilds, and that is of course linked to anti-Semitic tropes. And it says here, well, there's a picture of like basically somebody who's supposed to represent the Rothschilds dominating the globe, and it says, "For billions a year as interest on bonds, I rent the human race the privilege of existing on my earth. Through the private central bank scheme, I'll soon grab the United States, then I'll own all Christendom. Czars, emperors, kings, and the people all must obey my orders, submit to my exactions, or get off my earth." Now, when I saw that, I was like, "Holy crap!" Is there any way that's not anti-Semitic or Nazi-esque?
That is absolutely
So I remember.
I'll go first, Tyler. Uh, that is absolutely an
Sorry.
anti-Semitic trope. Uh, you know, being whether somebody's a Nazi in high school or not, it really doesn't matter once they grow up. When I was in high school, I wasn't a white nationalist at all. Didn't have any leanings. Didn't wasn't
Well,
raised to be that way.
to be clear, he was an adult during my high school days.
Oh, okay. Well,
But anyway, go ahead.
I mean, it's entirely possible he had some of those leanings that you just didn't notice know about. I mean, really, this is a very typical
Sure.
uh, a conspiracy theory. It is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, but there's a lot of these type of memes that when they get out there, it becomes not necessarily it's not necessarily only people who are themselves anti-Semitic that will believe these. It's anybody that tends to believe conspiracy theories, and the
Sure.
Rothschilds. It's the same thing with the Soros memes, and you know, and all of that thing. It's basically about you know, uh, the Jew, so to speak, uh, taking over and stuff like that. And of course, it's got banking in there, which again, that's all down the line.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Um, and then when it talks about the grabbing the United States and then and stuff like that, that's when you start getting into even some of the tropes of the Great Replacement or white genocide, and so this entire
Sure.
meme is basically built to hit those areas, but it's made in a way that people that are not necessarily white supremacists and stuff can get into. Tyler.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was gonna say now I remember exactly the meme that you sent me. It's the one I said that looks like a schizophrenic rant.
Yeah.
Really. Um,
Yeah.
and like I say that like with respect that like I do have schizophrenia, so like I see it, and it doesn't make sense. It,
Yeah.
but it's
But I think
designed to
most
do
people
that.
out there will know what you're saying when you say schizophrenic, like scrambled and paranoid, basically in a
Right.
way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The inclination. I'm not saying like it's just schizophrenic, but like I'm saying yeah, it's pretty scrambled off the bat. Um, I was gonna say to add on to that. You tend to see with recruiting into this kind of sphere, they play on conspiracy theories, your fears. Um, there's always like with the intent of the meme itself, it's trying to subliminally add a layer of fear into you. Like you have to be
Sure.
aware of something going on that's not actually happening.
Well, what
And
what makes it interesting too is that because he's a Republican, he has other memes on his Facebook page that are about how it's actually the Democrats who are like the Nazis or the KKK or stuff like that. So where does that sort of propagandistic confusion of what these things mean? Where does that come from?
so
Is it something they intentionally do to sort of dupe people into following them?
yes, but I also feel like at some point there are instances of cognitive dissonance on like their own belief system,
Sure,
if that makes any sense.
sure. And politics can be confusing. For example, I mean, like I have some basic core values that could be considered communistic, but I'm not like a Stalinist or something, like I just don't think everything should have a dollar sign attached to it. But a lot of people they hear something like that and they think, "Oh, he's a Stalinist, he's a danger or something along those lines." And
Oh yeah,
I think that Antifa, like he's got a lot of memes about Antifa. I think that's sort of a catch-all for all these different boogeymen, and they just it's like they throw the word Antifa at a dartboard, and they think it sticks every time, but it ends up being like a just a paranoid throwing darts around in the dark room.
yeah. It's the communists, the Antifa, the BLM. That they all get roped up into the same thing.
And the Jew. Don't
It's
forget the
like
Jew.
it's like people who blame. Oh yeah, the it's like people who blame Jews for everything.
Yeah.
It's like It's like I'm surprised they don't say the Jews are making the food in my fridge go bad. You know what I mean? It's like, and they're
Oh, they
not
will.
they're not paranoid about Trump's relationship with Saudi Arabia and stuff like that, which is every bit as freaky as any other power relationship you could imagine, because they're a theocratic regime, and you would think that his own supporters would be afraid of them the most because they're Islamophobic in a lot of cases. Yet he's got this long term relationship with one of the biggest Islamic theocracies on the planet.
I mean,
I don't understand.
these are
Like,
the same
how
people
does that
that
So
not
it's
register?
like
these
that.
are the same people though that also, love Putin. And in this country, they love people like, Koch, as well as, Musk, and so they like this Rothschild meme is basically their way of kind of going after quote unquote the elites, but they themselves worship elites. It's a little bit of
Yeah,
Indeed.
yeah,
projection on that part.
Well, also the disconnect of, you know, people hating Iran, but then loving Saudi Arabia. They're
yeah.
both theocracies.
Well, I mean, I'm not exactly a historian, but as somebody who is at least vaguely familiar with what's happened in Iran, it seems like we've done a lot to shape what that country became. With the Shah of Iran and all these other things. Like, my mind isn't a steel trap. I'm not a historian or anything like that. But if you look into the Shah of Iran, it seems like that was a situation that created the modern country as we know it, with the rise
Oh,
of the Ayatollah and stuff like that.
yeah, you're right on point with that. So it's just strange to me when I don't know. I feel like there's a huge mental disconnect that most Americans have with that stuff.
Sure. And
But
with a lot of Americans, like they don't remember things that were even recent history. Like, I remember Rudy Giuliani actually saying on at least one occasion that there were no major terror attacks under George W. Bush. Do you remember him saying that at all, either of you?
I do. I
no, I do
and
not.
It's truly one of the stupidest things ever said
that's
in human
that's
history,
absolutely 100% true about.
especially when he was the mayor of New York.
That's the truth about the right wing, though, is and I mean, technically speaking, people on both sides have this issue of not remembering the past. I mean, even recent past. I mean, it wasn't that long ago we had Trump mismanaging a pandemic, among other things, and then of course, getting causing a riot and insurrection, and here he is.
Sure.
He still has a chance to become president again. It boggles the mind,
Oh yeah.
that the of the American people, our attention span collectively is a few minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I remember
I feel like
Howard
it's
Dean
designed
got
that way.
canceled because during some sort of campaign event, he had some sort of excitable scream, and that was enough to ruin his political career. And now you've got somebody who publicly lusts over his own daughter on national television, and people seem to be just fine with it. Like, it's just crazy.
Kimberly Guilfoyle did the very
you
same
know,
scream,
like,
and she's doing fine. They
oh
watch her.
yeah, it just shows how things have really changed. Though, I mean, things that used to matter don't matter anymore. Like, there's definitely no etiquette, or whatever term you want. Decorum, I suppose, would be a word.
At some point, you gotta wonder if it's almost designed this way on purpose.
So do you think that the total lack of decorum is a part of how extremism spreads at all? Because I actually kind of think it is.
I do, and the reason I say that
You know,
is because it gets it gets the chemicals in your brain kind of going. You get addicted to the conflict, you get addicted to that whole concept. I probably would not
sure.
have gone as deep within the rabbit hole as I did if it weren't for that addiction that you get. You know, when I was in the movement, I was probably not the most racist person in the world. Yes, I pushed racist stuff. Yes, I pushed racism, but I also knew how to play the game, and so I tended to be dog whistles. It's kind of like the Republican Party, the way it used to be, where it was just all about dog whistles. So I was kind of uncomfortable with overt racism, but I was addicted to only owning the lid. And you know, you get in
Sure.
there and you just that you get that juice from the conflict, and it becomes. I get the same type of feeling now going up against white nationalists. You know, it never really went away. It's just the kind of the target changed, and the target changed
It's
because of them.
redirected.
I mean, yeah, Tyler. I mean, you've seen it too.
It really is. But I mean, like, I know what you're saying, Scott, but for me, like, with a lot of the violence that I engaged in, that was my adrenaline rush for me. It's like waterboarding somebody or just attacking somebody was adrenaline rush that I was addicted. It was something to do. It was quick and easy, and I felt like I was doing something every time I was doing something violent.
Sure.
Yeah, and I knew tons like you. You know, the reason I got out of the movement was because of the violence and the negativity. You know, I've known mass murderers. You know, there's only so many times you can say. I mean, just knowing one mass murderer is too many mass murderers. And I've known Anders Breivik, Wade
Yeah.
Michael
Yeah,
Page. Glenn Miller wasn't a mass murderer, but he was a double murderer. I've known family annihilators like J.T. Reddy and Yankee Jim Leshkovich. Um, there's a certain point where you do kind of get in when you're in there, and especially if you're not the type that's addicted to the actual violence, like me, I was never really into that. Then you're sitting there going, well, am I the bad guy? It's like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm the
Yeah.
bad guy.
Yeah. Well, I do think a lot of people do have the potential for violence, and that's really one of the things that helps the ball get rolling. You know.
yeah. I mean, they also play on your. If you have mental illness, they'll fucking sniff it out right away. They'll play onto that. They'll latch onto you for that reason. You're easily malleable at that point if you're at like an isolated phase in your life, or like I don't know, you're just fucking angry at the world, and they'll just keep feeding you
Yeah.
more shit to be angry about.
Well, is there anything else you would like to say about that meme or?
I mean, other than it being a bad meme and nothing but a bunch of nonsense,
Yeah.
you know, there really isn't much more that hasn't been said. It's anti-Semitic, it's schizophrenic, it's word
Yeah.
salad. It's word salad that is meant to get a certain type of person upset so that that person can then you know, potentially be on your side. And in the past, it used to work better. By that I mean,
I
I
would like
don't
to
mean
say,
necessarily the meme itself, but in the past, that meme would have been printed out on a pamphlet and spread all over the place. And because there wasn't any internet where people could get
Yeah.
alternative information, it was more effective. With the way it is now, it's just meant to
It could have been in.
go ahead.
It could have been in streets all over Germany, for example,
Yeah, exactly.
at a certain time. Not today, but at a certain time. Well, I think there's a political party that's had some success recently in Germany that I think would like to go back to doing that, putting that type of propaganda around.
Yep.
AFD.
Yep.
I was gonna add to the meme itself. Um, there are certain memes that I call like trigger memes. Like it's just you get that one person a little too riled up, and they'll go take action. And I feel
Yeah.
like that meme right there was just designed for a specific type of person to get real riled up.
Oh, sure. So I mean that's why I started this podcast, because I mean originally I was just milling around the idea. I was originally maybe going to have a podcast about people that I'd blocked, and I was maybe going to have them as guests, and like we could maybe see if we could set our differences aside and hash things out or whatever. But I saw that meme and I was like, well, I have to tackle this specific person, you know, not violent, not literally violently, but like their online presence, and how this one person is probably radicalizing people within my area. You know what I mean? And it's somebody that I used to know, somebody who's a little bit on the lovable side or whatever you want to say. Um, he's just kind of a goofy guy. I got along with him back in the day, but now I don't know. He might be goofy, but in a different way altogether.
I mean, that's literally
I
me.
guess I would say.
One of the reasons why I was so successful is because
Yeah, yeah,
I always was the goofy guy. I mean, if you've seen my Twitter feed, you've known me for a couple of years now, I think, at this point, maybe just over
oh yeah.
two or
Well,
three. And yeah, when I always used my natural uh, charm, I guess you can say, to get to basically recruit and do things. So I was exactly that. I was the goofy guy that could recruit for some of the worst things in the world.
yeah. And you know, when I first interviewed you for my other podcast, Critical Weight Theory, it was a little bit weird because it seemed like I knew you my entire life or something like that. And then I realized, well, that's how he was good at recruiting back in the day, because he has this everyman kind of quality to him.
Uh,
And I realized that that's how I
It's
got him
also
in.
the Michigan thing.
Not that you only ever use that cynically, but you know, I'm just
Well,
saying.
I mean, uh, it's it, there's a little cynicism behind it. You know.
I
Yeah.
mean, but for the most part, you use it for good.
Well,
So,
are there any final words? Because I guess we could wrap things up. I don't want to take up all your day.
It,
Well, it's only 23 minutes, but
It's been good. Apologies if I've had any glaring issues with my audio or video or anything. I'm living in Northwest Montana, so my internet is not exactly the best in the world.
sure,
But
sure.
I'll always enjoy talking to
I
you,
hear you.
Wade, and you know, it,
Yeah.
you can always have me on anytime you want.
All right, cool. And nice to
oh,
meet you, Tyler. Never saw you
you as
before, but
well.
and
I was
if
gonna
you
say
ever
the
want to
same
come
thing
back
with mine.
on this podcast, you can, or you know, if you want to stay in touch or whatever. All right.
All right,
So
sounds
have a good one.
All right, thank you, Wade.
all right. You too.